I'm your host, Jonathan Kuskiski, and today I've got a very special guest, Project Trio. All the way here from Brooklyn, we've got Eric Stevenson, Peter Seymour, and Greg Patillo. Thank you for making some time to talk to us today.
Our pleasure.
Great to be here.
Great to have you. All right, so want to start by talking a little bit about your aesthetic, if we can use that word. Mm-hmm. For those who have not seen Project Trio, it's really something to behold. You're very distinctive and authentic. We had a talk earlier today where we talked about this concept of the cosmic whole note. Is that right? Yeah. Could you talk a little, I don't mean to plug that one, but I love that concept. Could you talk a little bit about that and how it informs the sort of flow of your performances?
Oh yeah, the cosmic whole note is a eurythmic concept that we teach to students that basically put a very slow BPM to try to get our rhythm down to even the slowest format, and but we like to use it kind of as a philosophy of our show, where the whole show from the beginning all the way to the end is one cosmic whole note that you need to be in control of all of that time, and that you need to engage your audience for that entire time. And then within that, you have smaller cosmic whole notes per piece, per section, per phrase, per instrument. And so we love to just use this rhythmic kind of metaphor for a really engaging show.
That's awesome. So, in other words, you captivate the audience from the very moment, maybe even the moment before you step on stage until the end. There's no opportunity to lose focus, I think, from an audience's standpoint, which is really powerful. So, can you talk a little bit about how you got there? I mean, maybe you all started this way, but it seems like you've cultivated a really authentic aesthetic that's grounded in sort of compelling performance. So everything about it, you perform from memory, you move, there's choreography, there's vamping, there's beatboxing, of course, there's all sorts of really distinctive elements. How did you end up making this music?
The three of us met about 20 years ago at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And, we've just been friends for a long time. And we all have a very eclectic taste in musical styles that we like to listen to. Mm-hmm. And so all of that goes into who we are as musicians. Even though we are trained as classical musicians, we try to take from all the genres. And actually, as much as we take from classical music that makes up kind of our chamber music and the way that we listen to each other and the way that we perform on our instruments, we take from kind of rock and hip hop and all these things of how like bands come together and how they engage their audience, how they run their businesses, how they think about the group, and like you're saying, that's some of the stuff we do with memorization. We face our audience, we engage our audience completely, we talk to our audience. And we also, most importantly, we program a really wide variety of music. We cast a wide net. And that way, everyone's going to like at least one tune during the concert. But yeah, it's a really eclectic thing.
Can you talk, okay, so I didn't even mention the instrumentation, which is important to talk about here, right? So we've got cello, double bass, and flute. So we're talking, you mentioned this in the concert, talking about mining established repertoire. I think you probably found what was there pretty quickly, right? Because there's not too much maybe written for your ensemble. So can you talk a little bit about, that I think for a lot of groups would be an impediment. It's like, oh, well, we want to play chamber music, but there's no rep, so too bad. You obviously took a different approach. So can you talk a little bit about how you tackled
it's a bit of a mixed blessing. The bar is really low then for bringing this group forward, bringing this ensemble type forward. And we are naturally into creating music, arranging music. And since no music was written for this instrumentation, we had to take it there. And the nature of performing through a cosmic whole note, through a whole work, through a whole show, you need content. And so developing content is a wild thing these days. And there are so many styles to choose from. We have a very low instrument, a mid-low instrument. I play a very high instrument. And so then switching the roles, traditionally you find the flute always playing the melody or very lyrical, but maybe I can play a bass line or I beatbox on the flute, maybe I can drum, and maybe Peter can do melody on the bass. So not only are we switching styles, but we're switching roles freely through the group. And this was something we could do right from the beginning because nothing was holding us back. We weren't, there were no giants before us creating for this group. So we could just see what worked. We are very much into performance. We perform all over the place. We do a lot of educational performance, pro performance, street performance. We kind of run the gamut. And through performance, we found what works and what sticks. We're very aware of our audience. We want to make sure that we are entertaining to them and that they leave having had a great time. And so actually our show has been changing over the 10 years. We learn from our performances and grow from them.
Yeah, so one thing that you just illustrated briefly, and I want to talk about a little bit more, is how your process is analogous to an entrepreneurial process, which is specifically the lean startup, right? Where you build, measure, then learn, and you try to cycle through that as quickly as possible. In other words, you test out an idea. It can't just be in your head. You have to demonstrate it. So as an example, it would be performing something, whether that's on the street or in a concert setting or part of it or whatever, and then you get feedback from it, you learn, and you make changes to improve it, right? So again, you need to see you to really get the full context, but I'm curious, which of these sort of skills that are all now woven together that makes a Project Trio show, the speaking, the choreography, the arranging, right? The improvisation. Which of these skills came with your education, and which of these skills did you, or maybe all of them, did you develop on your own? And what are some challenges that you faced in crafting and honing those skills?
Good question. Deep question. Well, I'll say that, we have performance majors, and so I think we've always been performers and thought of ourselves as performers. And so even from the conservatory days, the idea of performing music was in our mind. We wanted to play our instruments in front of people. Yeah. And so that was always an important aspect. Now we've just taken it the step forward where, we want to perform all the time. We don't want to perform just in the venue in the evening time. We want to get out there and perform as much as possible. So performance is still the big thing. The one thing that sets our group aside from a lot of traditional chamber music ensembles is that we actually write a lot of our own music. While we do mine for some of the great, we take, great arrangements of classical and jazz works, we actually write a huge amount of our music. And I will say we were never taught to write music while we were at conservatory. But I will say that we learned a lot through theory and through form and even studying the history of music, that then when we got out and we were like, man, it is bass, cello, flute. We actually do need our own music. Let's start. And we started with improvisation. And then those improvisations maybe started becoming jams. Then those jams, we were like, well, these need to be more. And so then we were able to use some of our training, thoughts about form and theory and these kind of things to then make these into more full thought out pieces that could then be performed, on the stage for any audience. So those are some things I'd say that we took from our training and then meshed it together later on to kind of make our ensemble.
I would add that we also took a lot of our training that we didn't really like about it. A lot of our training involved reading music and working in a very kind of thought process and getting through and practicing and everything. We kind of went the other direction where we wanted to create a system where we could improvise and play off of each other and only really use our training as practical applications of the knowledge that we were learning, less being told exactly what to play. So we were learning from all of the great music that you get in a very classical tradition training, and we wanted to know, how did Mozart get all his music out? How did Beethoven get all his music out? But at the same time, we went further than the classical idioms, and I wanted to know, and we wanted to know how Miles Davis put together his music. How did Led Zeppelin get together and do stuff? So it was taking all of the stuff that we found very valuable in our training, but also kind of maybe not throwing it out, but putting aside some of the stuff that we thought maybe would get in our way, and then continue to experience music all across the board, stylistic, genre, specific, and all over the world through time. So I think through all of that gave us our own personal voices that we could then create something in a new way that was representative of all of the training, of all of the study, but also was representative of who we are as people and what we were into.
Yeah. I'll also, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to say, like, at a conservatory level or when you're at a great university, the virtuosity, the being able to play your instrument at the highest level is still going to be, you know, and actually, you talk about Led Zeppelin, you talk about musicians who are playing their instrument at the highest level, Miles Davis, and also all the classical greats. So I think that was another part.
I would say that the classical foundation, how we grew up learning from teachers, learning the rep, learning the skills it takes to learn these instruments at a high level in the classical realm is such an amazing foundation that if you can internalize that and then you can laterally plop that into any discipline. And so beyond just learning rep and kind of applying ourselves towards that, we now took those skills of practicing, which is first like knowing where you're deficient, even being aware, having a game plan how you're going to fix it, being able to fix it according to time or a budget, and then being able to do the skill in real time. These are musical problems, and these are problems we find then as we're trying to record ourselves or make videos or write tunes or get bookings or even be on the road traveling and being together. These are all skills that need to be built as well. And so the classical foundation teaches you how to just knock down, mow through problems. If you can step away from it and apply it to other disciplines, it's a very powerful force.
So what you're talking about really is kind of allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to transfer the discipline, the rigor, all the problem solving, the creativity that is inherent in making music and honing your skill, and just applying it a little more broadly. Thinking about repertoire, arranging, crafting an experience that's really compelling for any audience member. I think that's true too. I think you can come to see a Project Trio show and be a classical music lover and have a great time. You can also come in and not have much familiarity with classical music and have a great time. And that takes a sensibility of what makes a compelling musical performance, which can only come from deep study, broadly speaking, across different styles. So that's great advice. Okay, before we run out of time, since you are a trio, I'm going to ask each of you to posit one sort of bit of advice. So a lot of our audience members are either students or recent alumni who are interested in crafting their own sort of projects, launching careers on their own terms, not just seizing opportunities, but creating opportunities. So thinking about that as your audience, I'd love each of you to share one idea or one tidbit of advice that you would share with them for, let's say, a student who's got an idea, doesn't know where to start, and wants to test out something for a community to see if it could be that thing that maybe helps launch their career.
Take yourself out of the practice room and go and perform for any audience that will sit in front of you. That might be your friends, your family, at church, you might book a show, but all of those things are valuable things to be doing to help you get your idea out there. Because like we were just talking about, once you get it out there once, you're going to tweak it for the next one and the next one. So we spend so much time practicing. I think getting out and performing as much as possible is a good step.
Great.
Yeah. I'd say really studying the industry, understanding whatever it is you're doing. So if you want to be in a chamber music industry, then you really need to go out there and find out who's doing what. Like who are people that you're looking up to? Who are the people that are excelling at the highest level? Who are the people that are out there just starting out? And kind of getting a broad understanding of like what is going on out there in the industry. It's just like how when you're in school, if you're trying to play Beethoven or Brahms or Bach or whatever it is, you're gonna study that music from an internal level. And so you really need to understand the industry. And I think as you start to get that research done and like knowing what's out there, it might point you in some directions, and then give you something to jump off and to create your own thing.
Awesome.
You need to be the music that you think is missing, right? You need to be your scene. And if you already know what's missing and you already have a scene, you need to do the work and do it yourself. No one's going to do the work for you. You can do it. It will be hard work, but you need to face that right off the bat. No one's going to hand you $1 million and be like, bang, now you're set for life. It's going to be a struggle for the rest of your life, and it's a lifestyle. But if you found your calling or you found what's missing in that, and you want to apply yourself to it, do it by yourself. Do it with your friends. Don't wait for the manager or the company to help you. Already from the get-go, be willing to do all that work on your own. No one's going to work harder for you than you will work for yourself.
Great advice. And one thing I would just add to that is so clear is that you hinted at it here at the end, which is that find the people that you want to be doing this work with, that you really enjoy playing with, because you can leverage the total knowledge and skill sets or whatever from a group. And that's really hard to do if you're just feeling like you're forced to play with people. And sometimes that happens in school for various reasons. But when you get out into the world, you're going to spend your time doing all this work and managing all the aspects of a project like your project. It makes sense you'd want to do it with people that you can really find inspiration from.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate having the chance to talk with you guys.
Right on, man.
Thank you for making time. Thank you for being here and for performing and working with our students. And we'll be sure to keep following Project Trio for years to come. Thank you so much.
All right, our pleasure.